Okay, so welcome back. And so now I'm going to walk through how we do this in Trello. As you see, this is a Trello board named Awesome Sales Team Product Backlog. As you'll recall from my diagram, this captures our requirements. So we've got 5 big buckets here. New, that's where new work comes in. Product backlog ungroomed, that's maturity level 1 or 2. We haven't sized it yet. Once it's been sized and we've broken down weekly deliverables, things that we can actually do within a sprint, then it goes into the product backlog. So, and then next sprint is things that we plan to do in the upcoming sprint. And then obviously when it finally gets complete, then it's over here in the completed work. Okay, and so here's the current sprint, as you remember from the diagram. So sprint backlog and the buckets that comprise that backlog. This is the work that we're currently working on this week, and generally it'll be empty. This is the backlog of work that comes in from the product backlog, and then it gets broken down into to-do tasks, and that goes in here. And then each team member, they'll pick up the card that they're going to work on today. They'll move it into the the doing queue, and generally it should only be a one-day card. If it's more than multiple days, then it should be split out into different to-dos. And then when that's done, it will move over to done. So let's walk through how that actually works. Okay, so imagine a new deal comes in. Another example might be, and then maybe another idea is, so there are the 3 cards. Now let's go into it and say this is a hot new deal. So let's just label it that it's a deal. And you'll see here are the labels in Trello. And you may have noticed that the deal got renumbered. This is a butler task here. You see the latest deal number card tracks the latest deal, and then it gets renumbered so we can talk about the deal number instead of this long description. And see, it's got a custom field here called deal number. I'll show you how that all works also. So I say it's a deal, and you notice that when that happens, then it lists some reminders to the teams to put stuff in here. So it's a deal, and then you would just edit this and say, okay, and this is a crit sit, so we're going to say this is a support issue. Now, if it's a crit sit 1, then we'll probably go talk to the product owner and get this prioritized in our current sprint. And this is a workshop. So let's go in and say that this is a enablement. This is something that we need to build. Okay, sure. I'll just capture what I can, but I'm trying to do this task pretty quickly. Okay, because I need to get back to the work at hand. So, okay, so this is work that came in the middle of the week, but I'm currently working on a sprint, so I don't want to be distracted by reactive work unless the reactive work has more value than the work that's currently in progress. Okay, so during our product backlog refinement meeting, the team, we would go through the list of new work and then groom it. So let's do that. Let's take this one. This is a hot new deal. We're now going to look at it. So we'll pick it up and move it into the product backlog ungroomed, and then we'll go into it. So now generally, if somebody sends you a lead, you're going to get back to them that day as quickly as possible and maybe capture some additional information. There will be in sales a little bit of reactive work, but you don't want to just constantly be reactive. So maybe he said he wants to see a video, so we would have called him and said, what are you interested in? He said, okay, so we spoke to him and he said he'd like to see a demo of Watson Assistant and Watson Discovery. So that's what we need to produce. So we have these user stories. And so our first user story is what can we do in 1 week? So within a sprint. So we're going to call this user story. Now this is a user story. So I got to get a resource. I got to get access. There's a lot of things that may go into this, but it's a user story. What do I want to get done as a deliverable? So I need to demo these products to the client, and it's something that I'm confident we can get done within a sprint. Therefore, it is a user story. Now, I have a Trello Butler task that will pick up that user story because it's prefixed with US, and it will convert it, as you see over here, into a user story and link back into it in Trello, and I'll show you how that works. And so now in the product refinement meeting, I'll ask the team, what else do we need to do that we're aware of at this point? Especially, is there any work we know that needs to be done this coming week from the client's perspective? So he wants to see a demo, and then he also maybe wants to see, ballpark pricing. Okay, so maybe he's thinking about Watson Assistant and Watson Discovery for university students to ask questions about the programs, the curriculum, the professors, things of that nature. He's got 10,000 concurrent users at the university, so he's trying to get a ballpark price for what it would take to do that. So a little bit of work that needs to go into that. We need to sort of size it. We got to estimate it. It's not something that's cookie cutter done. You have to sort of look at it and analyze it and figure out how to scope that to what he's looking for. Put something in front of them as a version 1 draft, and then revise after you get feedback from them. So now we'll call this version 1. Okay. And more than likely we'll have to go back and forth a few times on getting that correct. But we still want to, get something in front of the customer, figure out that we're on track. And so that's something we believe as a team that we can get done within a sprint. So we list that. So that's the key things that we know we need to get done in the next week or so. And then we'll probably have a version 2, version 3, etc. As necessary. And throughout the week, if there's other work that needs to come in, especially deliverables, then we'll put them as user stories as we're working on this. This is sort of refining the product backlog as things develop. Now inside of here, I may need to call the client. I may need to schedule a WebEx. There's all kinds of logistics and other things that I need to do research. A lot of different things that may need to happen. But those are inside of this deliverable. Okay? And now the team estimates that. This is an epic. So I'm going to label this as an epic because I know this cannot be done completely in a week. Okay, so that epic is essentially groomed. And then we'd move to the next one. Right? So this is a support issue. And then we would add a check. Maybe this doesn't need a checklist. Maybe this is coordinate. Okay, and so we could say that this is the work that needs to be done. If it produces something of value, deliverable, then we probably want to tag it as a user story. And then it'll put in some stuff like here. So let's just say that that's done. Generally you want to spend, maybe 5 minutes or something, 5 to 10 minutes, time box how much time you're going to spend on this, because you may have lots of existing deals that you need to add additional user stories, new work that needs to be done to that existing deal. So you don't want to spend a whole bunch of time. You're just trying to get the high level deliverables to be done. So this is a hands-on workshop. So this is an epic because I know that we don't have the content. I'd ask the team, do we have content that meets the needs here? And they say, we got some, but we don't have all of it, so we got to put stuff together. So then I would call this an epic, and the first user story is going to be US 001, create an agenda, right? And then we probably need to do something like overview V1 presentation. Right, so these are 3 key deliverables that we think we can get done in the next couple weeks, so we list it as a sprint. We need to probably get a review of the agenda before we list out the rest of the deliverables. We can list them later. We don't really need to go into that great a detail, try to iron out all the details at this point. We're just trying to figure out what can we get done in the immediate future. And then once we get feedback on the agenda, then we'll do the work on getting the rest of the details ironed out and do research on finding what content's available, what net new content do we need to add, etc. Obviously, if there's something cookie cutter ready to go, then we'll point them to that, and we don't even really need to make this an epic or a user story if we just reply back with email, hey, here's content that's already available. And that's what I said, some of the work is still reactive. We just don't want to be in reactive mode all the time. Okay, and so now these are no longer new, they've been moved in here. And generally you would sort these, so crit sit 1 may be highest priority, deal 1 is second highest priority, and then the workshops. And now we need to go through the user stories and size them. So user story 1 is how much effort will it take to build a demo. And again, this is version 1, so maybe we should clarify that and say it's a V1. And so we use this power up card size, and then I would use planning poker with the team and say, what do you think it will take to do this? And some folks will say, it's an hour. Some will say it's 8 hours, or what have you. So use the Fibonacci sequence to make sure to realize the cone of uncertainty, that we can't be very accurate with our estimate when we're talking 20, 30, 40 hours, things of that nature. But we probably are pretty accurate when we say it's an hour. So build a demo script. Maybe we've done this in the past, so it's not super complicated. Obviously, if we have something out of the box to go, then it's just a matter of going and collecting it, and so it doesn't need to take that much time. But let's say we don't have that. We need to figure out what resonates with this client. We know it's for a university, so we might want to do some sample students or some sample question and answers, FAQs that university students would want. So we can't use maybe a cookie cutter demo for banking. Maybe that doesn't work with the university, or we have to decide, will the banking demo be sufficient as a first step? Maybe that's our first step, which is get in front of the client and say, here's a banking demo. Is this what you're thinking? He's like, yeah, a little bit. I'm still not sure how that applies to me. So then, in which case, maybe you need to build a custom demo specific to this client. So let's say that this is a 5. The team thinks this is a 5. And again, a 5 is relative to the other cards. So that's it. I say that, and now that is estimated. So now it's maturity level 3. And so it's here in the product backlog. So then we go to the next card, ballpark pricing. So again, 10,000 concurrent users, probably look for some references of what we've done in the past. And so I'd ask the team to size this. Again, we don't have to be 100% accurate here. We're just trying to ballpark estimate. So the team says, well, I need to go fill out the catalog. I need to do some architectural diagrams to sort of get a feel for what we're talking about here. So let's say they say it's an 8. And done with that one. So let's move it over here. And then we say a draft agenda. So I've done things like these in the past. So this is an agenda, draft version 1. And so how long does this take? So we're talking about, listing out the topics and 1 day, 1-page agenda. Maybe need to research what's already out there. So let's say this is a 5. And so that's done. And then we would go into the overview. This is, again, for the enablement. You see that Trello is linked to it, so it knows the parent that this child belongs to. And so how long will it take for an overview slide? There's some stuff already available we know about. So we think we just need to massage it a little bit. It's mostly ready to go. So let's say that's a 2. All right, so my user stories from my epics have been estimated. So I'll move them into sort of the groomed and prioritized on sort of order. Now this crit sit, it's not an epic. This is something we think we can get done this week. So we estimate, this is going to take, let's just say it's a 5 relative to the other tasks. And so we can move it over, and it's the top of the list. So now what we would do is we'd plan, what do we want to get done next week? This is usually done by the product owner in Scrum, but in a sales team, it's often a collaborative effort to figure out what we can do. So let's say that we can only do 13 points of work. That's our velocity. Then we would pull over, less than 13 points of work. Now, let's say that we can do a little bit more. Again, this in Scrum, you can't just keep adding work. It's what the team feels is comfortable getting done within a sprint, tied against their velocity from the previous week. So with that, I have this Trello Butler task here, which says move to the sprint board. And so on Monday, we would start our sprint planning, and we would pull these, or the Scrum team would pull these tasks over to the current sprint. So here is those stories that got pulled in. Now they're in the wrong order, so let's put this crit sit as the first topic of business, and then the user story 1 would be done next. Okay, so now the team would open these and break out the individual tasks, sort of those kinds of things, and then we can say this other Trello Butler task called create tasks, and it will split this out into the individual task you see over here in the to-do task. So now that's been decomposed. Now we move on to the next task. And so again, this is just the demo, but what do we have to do? So we have a task, and we can go in here, and this is where the team would sort of brainstorm out what they want to do. So then we say create the task for that. Okay, so we've listed out the task. Now some of these tasks might be, a little too small. How much research? But generally, if it's going to take up to a day, then it's a task. So big chunks of work that can be done in a day by a person. If they're different people that need to do the task, then it should be split out. But we don't need to, if research and audience and list the top 3 and the one-page demo script can all be done by one person in one day, then just list it as, build demo script. And then how you go about doing that is sort of in the details in here. Maybe test run, maybe that needs to be somebody else. So that should probably be a separate task because it's going to be assigned to somebody else. Okay, so finished with that task, and then we would move on to the ballparking here, and we would list out the tasks here as well. Create tasks, and that will split these out into tasks. So now we've done our sprint planning, we've sized everything, we've broken it down into all of the work, right? So this is work that we plan to get done this, and if all of these things are done, then this user story should be done. Now, if we've got dependencies on other people, if we're not confident we can close out that dependency within the sprint, then we should keep that in the product backlog and get those dependencies resolved. By the time it makes it to the current sprint, it needs to be dependent free. Okay, so then after the planning, now the Scrum team will say, I'm going to take this task. So they put their name. And then if we add, Bob would take this one and assign it to himself. And Susie would take this one and say she's working on this. Okay? And so that's what we're doing today. And then the call would be over. Now, the next day, we come in and Bill says, okay, I finished this crit sit. It's done. And then Bob says, I finished this other step. And so that's done. And now you'll see that my Trello rule, my Butler, it sees that these 2 tasks belong to this user story, see? And it checks them off, and then when it's 100% complete, it moves the card over here to done. So likewise, this research, let's say that got done. And so it's Tuesday, and then Bill says he's gonna work on this. He says, okay. And then the top 3 is gonna be here. And so if Bill gets this done, let's say in the middle of the day, he gets this done, he moves it over to done, and he picks up the second task. All right? And so the team sort of iterates through here, pulling in the tasks that they can get done. Now if something runs into the way, they get a block, they can say it's blocked, and then the Scrum Master or the product manager, product owner, they can help to try to resolve that. But generally, if the team can unblock it, then they should. At any rate, then this comes in, say that this is done. And so let's say that we unblocked it, we got that done, we got this done, we got this done. Okay, so now this user story is getting updated. See all these checkboxes as we move over the task? Then the checkboxes get updated. So that card has been completed and it's moved over here to complete. So these two user stories have been complete. And so let's say that we ran into problems and we didn't get these other stories done. The nice thing is with Scrum and Agile is we did produce something. At the end of the sprint on Friday, we can demonstrate these two deliverables. And that's better than having 3 partially completed deliverables or user stories that we can't demonstrate. These are the stories that actually got complete, and so what I would say is move these to the product board as complete. And so I have a butler task that's going to go pick up these user stories and move them over back to the product board. And these tasks that didn't get complete, they would go to the product backlog groomed and then get reprioritized. So then these tasks are complete, so then I would come in and archive these, archive the list. At the end of the week, that's done, and then these I would put back on the product backlog. So back here in the product backlog, you see that these have been moved in as complete. And you'll also notice that since this user story, deal 1, user story 1, is part of this epic, not that epic, this epic. And so you see that that user story has been checked, complete, right? And so now this next sprint on Monday, we would plan out this user story 2. And maybe we have some new work that comes in, which is, revise the demo script according to feedback from the client, right? And so that's sort of the secret that we sort of progress. We break up this big work into chunk-sized deliverables, weekly deliverables, and make progress. Now, daily scrums and things like that, if you're working with sales executives and things like that, maybe that's a little too frequent. Maybe you want to do sort of monthly sprints, and a monthly sprint is what you're going to get done in the month. And maybe once a week is sort of like your daily Scrum stand-up call where you talk about, hey, what's on the agenda for this week. Now, that's not official Scrum. Official Scrum says 15 minutes stand-up or 15-minute daily Scrum call, weekly sprint planning, weekly sprint review, etc. But to me, Agile is about breaking down big tasks, time boxing your calendar, your scope of work to a certain time period, and then getting a minimum viable product, minimum viable deliverable out at the end of that time period. That's really the sort of secret sauce to Agile. So you can do that even with sales executives. You just maybe don't do daily meetings, you do weekly meetings, and then monthly planning. I still think sprint planning is awesome, where you get together and sort of plan out what work's going to be done in a given time period. Maybe that's plan out for the month. Here's the agenda. Here's the campaigns I'm going to do. Here's the deals that I've got in the works, things like that. But at any rate, this is the system that I use with Scrum and Agile and Trello. And so thanks for watching. If this is interesting to you and you want to see how to build this out, I'll make another video and show you these Butler cards and the rules on how this is sort of automated and deals renumbered and checkboxes checked as you move work to complete, how these little card buttons are done and board buttons and things of that nature. All right, thanks for watching.